want you to picture someone that you would want to have on your team. Now, this might be a friend or just someone you would love to have as a friend. I want you to imagine that I'm going to ask you to do a team project. Cook a 5-course meal for a bunch of VIPs, or design and build a fuel-efficient car for the Eco Challenge, or put on a theatrical production in front of a live audience. Who would you choose to be on your team? Think of somebody who would be fun to be with, because you're going to spend a lot of time together, someone you would enjoy working with. Think of somebody who you would be able to cooperate with and collaborate with a minimum of conflicts. And think of somebody that would motivate you to get the job done on time and to a good standard. So picture that person in your head right now. Chances are that person has high EQ. So what is EQ? I will tell you. Social and emotional intelligence is the ability to understand and work with people and to understand your own feelings and behavior too. You've all heard of IQ, your intellect, your intelligence. That's what's going to let you to understand a Shakespeare sonnet or to solve a complicated algebra equation. That's your IQ. But your EQ is your people skills and your social skills and your self skills for self-management. Now, organizational psychologists, they're the ones that work with big industry and big corporations, have been saying for about 20 years now that EQ is as important, if not more important than IQ when it comes to job success. Because after all, that's what's going to get you hired, because you interview well and because your previous boss gives you a high recommendation. It's what's going to get you promoted to team leader. It's what's going to help your colleagues to like you and to be willing to work for you. And it's what's going to give you job satisfaction. And educational psychologists in classrooms have noticed that if you teach social and emotional skills to children, they perform better, they behave better in the classroom, and they get along with each other better, but their grades actually improve. And so social and emotional intelligence is important for job success, it's important for school success, it's important for building satisfying, healthy relationships, and it's also important for feeling in control and feeling like you're handling life well. It's not that nothing bad will ever happen to you. You could still get rejected by a friend or have to move to a new school, but if that does happen, if you've got high EQ, you'll handle it well, and you'll be resilient and bounce back. So what is this EQ? What is social and emotional intelligence? Well, there is the social part. It's what Howard Gardner would call people smart. It involves recognizing and understanding the emotions of other people and then adapting your behavior accordingly. So for example, all of us can recognize big, bold emotion. If someone is recoiling in abject terror and panic, you'll pick up on it. Everyone can recognize furious anger, and everyone can recognize someone who's weeping with devastating sadness. But it's the subtle, little emotions that people with high EQ are good at recognizing and responding to. So what if someone is starting to lose interest in the conversation and their eyes take on that slightly glazed look? Can you notice? And if you notice, can you quickly ask them a question and make eye contact and engage them back in the conversation? If you've just shared a little too much personal information and you get that little recoil, that little head gesture that suggests that that's a little bit too much personal information, can you quickly make light of it and change the subject? And if you notice that you've just received a compliment, but the person next to you is trying to look happy for you, but the smile doesn't quite reach their eyes because they're feeling a little left out or maybe a little envious, can you turn it around and give them a compliment or make them feel included? If you can, then you've got high EQ. Understanding other people's emotions, though, is more than just putting yourself in their shoes. And I think sometimes we adults say the wrong things when we're trying to teach social perspective taking to kids, because we say things like, how would you like it if Tommy took your fire truck? Or, how would you feel if Jessica called you fat? But social perspective taking isn't actually putting yourself in someone else's circumstances, because when you do that, you take your personality, your age, your gender, your cultural background, your experience, and you imagine what you would feel like in their situation, and you might feel something very different from them. Real social perspective taking is when you can see the world as though through their eyes, as though with their personality, and understand what they're really feeling. But in addition to the social part, there's also the emotional part. And so emotional intelligence has to do with your inner skills. Howard Gardner would call it your self-smarts, recognizing your own emotional states. So I'm going to get each of you to do a little survey right now. Look inside your body. Ankles, knees, hips, shoulders. Are you comfortable? A few of you are shifting in your seats. It tells me that you didn't even notice you were in a slightly awkward position. Have a look at your emotional state. Are you bored? Are you curious? Are you restless? Are you anxious because you're the next speaker? How are you feeling right now? The ability to be aware of what you're feeling while you're feeling it is part of emotional intelligence. And it's not just knowing what you're feeling and why you're feeling that way, but also being able to control it. A lot of young people come to my office because I do counseling there. And they come and they'll say things to me like, I'm just so stressed out lately, I can't stand it. I just can't help it. Or, my teacher said this to me and it made me so angry, I just can't help it. It's like they're a puppet on strings, and emotions are just something that happen to them, and there's nothing they can do about it. And the thing that I've noticed is those young people, kids, teenagers with higher EQ, can quickly come to learn that there's a lot you can do about your inner state. Sometimes it's through positive self-talk. It's the story that you tell yourself so that you learn to cheer yourself up or calm yourself down. When you realize that you have control over your own emotional state and you're not helpless, emotions aren't just something that happen to you, there's something that you can moderate and regulate and control, then you feel like those strings are cut. And it feels like you're in control of your own life, and you can change things by the story that you tell yourself. And so people with strong emotional intelligence are able to learn that and do it. And one of the most important things that they can do is they can get themselves to do something, whether they're in the mood for it or not, because they're not ruled by their emotions. I agreed to participate in a 10-kilometer road race in about 2 months' time, and I have never run a race of any kind, of any length before in my life. And so I know that if I want to reach that long-term goal, I've got to train and I've got to practice for it. But the weather has been terrible in The Hague lately. It's been cold and rainy and even snowy in March. And there's plenty of days when I just don't feel like going out for a run. People with strong emotional intelligence are able to get themselves to do something, whether they feel like it or not, because their emotions aren't the thing in control of them. They're in control. And so you can study for a test, whether you feel like it or not. You can sit down and do your homework, even if you're not in the mood for it. I am in a position sometimes to measure kids' IQ. It's part of my job. And so I'll meet students, 2 students with very similar levels of IQ. And I'll notice that one is really succeeding in school and another one is really struggling. And a lot of it can be down to their emotional intelligence. Are they able to get themselves to do something even when they're not in the mood for it? Are they able to listen to a teacher even if she's kind of boring? Are they able to sit down and prepare for a test regardless of the mood that they're in? The ones that can have high EQ. And then with the same level of IQ, they're more successful in school. And they're happier and they're feeling a whole lot less stressed as well. Everything improves with practice. There's not a single skill that doesn't. If you want to play a piece flawlessly on the piano, you've got to practice it. If you want to play a great game of tennis, you've got to play some tennis games for practice. Social and emotional skills can be practiced too. And so then you can take that spark of talent that you've got and really fan the flames until you've got a blaze of glory. And so I'm going to invite you as students not just to concentrate on your algebra and your Shakespeare and your physics and chemistry, as important as those things are, but also to practice your social and emotional skills. And then you'll have every satisfaction and every success. Thank you.